So I just wanted to cover the evolution of Sofia Falcone-Gigante from the Long Halloween to the Penguin now in 2024. You have to trace Sofia back to the Falcone family in the Batman franchise. Really, the Falcone family was just pretty much the Godfather version of the Corleone family inserted into Gotham. And Sofia, being one of the children, I believe she was originally considered the middle child and only daughter of Carmine Falcone, was really inspired by Sonny Corleone in the Godfather movie. So she would make her comic book debut in issue 6 of the Long Halloween, which took place on St. Patrick's Day. And of course, in the Long Halloween, we have the theme of a holiday killer. And we first see Sofia here being released from prison. She would be approximately 29 years old. And this was really after her father helped her get an early release to really help her on what was going on with the holiday killings. And we really see Sofia's character have an extremely large physical presence, and we even see her throughout this comic really serve as an intimidation factor, whether it be trying to get different information from people or just really being a show of force. That's really where we see Sofia come into play. We really don't get a whole lot of focus on her originally in the Long Halloween. We do see her again at the end of the comic, and that would be where Two-Face kills Carmine Falcone, and Catwoman, in an attempt to try and stop Sofia from getting retaliation on Two-Face in the matter, accidentally knocks her through the window, and that's where she would fall and get severely injured. But besides that, she is really just more of a secondary character in this. And of course, following the Holiday Killer's reveal, we know that that wasn't her, and we really see her pick up in the sequel to the Long Halloween. That would be the Dark Victory comic and storyline, and we see her after the events of the end of the Long Halloween. She did survive that, but due to those injuries, she's now seen in a wheelchair for her father's funeral, and we now see her taking over the Falcone family. We see that she's moved into Carmine's penthouse, is pretty much running the show and following her father's death, in addition to her relationship with Salvatore Maroni. We see her form an alliance with the Maroni family here. In this new plot, we get a new holiday killer, but it is definitely a new style, and we still have the same plots of murders taking place every month on holidays, but in this edition, we see the new killer being referred to as the Hangman, and the Hangman would now leave specific notes and messages in the Hangman game style after each killing. And whereas before in the Long Halloween, where we had a lot of the victims being members of either crime family, we now see all of the policemen being targets of each killing. And really throughout the comic, I think one of the more interesting side plots is that we see her interactions with Catwoman. This would be her half sister, but we do have a little bit more of a passive aggressive tone here between those two, but it's not too clear what the dynamic of their relationship is. But in terms of the overall story, we really see both Batman and Gordon being stumped on who the killer is. And if anything, it's really Dick Grayson who looks further into the Hangman messages, and he's really able to help Batman pinpoint the killer back to the Falcone family. So we have Batman, of course, going back to investigate their compound, and we get somewhat of a standoff between him and Catwoman here. It's not really clear how much Catwoman knows in terms of who the Hangman is, or her being a little bit protective, if anything, of her half-sister. But nevertheless, we have Batman pretty much honing in, and this would really lead to the grand finale of Batman putting 2 and 2 together, and we see Sofia attempting her last kill as the Hangman, and that would be Harvey Dent. really as revenge for her father. So we see this again on the Halloween anniversary. And really what's apparent here is that she did fake her condition. Even though she still was severely wounded from that fall, she was never paralyzed, and that was really something she used to her advantage, just so she wouldn't be seen as a suspect. And really we get more of an explanation into the motives of the killing, and this was really due to a lot of these policemen being corrupt and being tied to Harvey Dent and helping him build his career in Gotham. And I would say overall for Dark Victory, we do get a lot more time spent on her character, but I would say she's still somewhat in the background because we really don't assume it's her until the end. And in terms of more of a writer's perspective, it does symbolize the end of the Falcone family here and the Falcone family's grip on Gotham. And really we wouldn't see any more of Sofia until the Gotham show on Fox. This would run between 2014 and 2019, but really we don't have Sofia until season 4 in 2017, and that would of course run into 2018. So this would be Sofia's live action debut as a character, and she would be pretty similar in age here. She's about 28 years old, and just an immediate drastic change, she doesn't have nearly the same physical presence that she does in the comics, and I would say this is most likely just due to the nature or style of the show. I would say the show is pretty reflective of the CW style, but we do have Sofia being played by Crystal Reed, and we really see her character relying heavily on her well-to-do upbringing in terms of the Falcone's wealth. And she really believes that Gotham is hers by birthright, so I would say we have a much more spoiled and egotistical version of her character here. And in terms of her character development, I would say she builds a lot of off and on relationships with prominent figureheads in Gotham, just really to obtain her means. And we really see that between both Jim Gordon and the Penguin. And in terms of Gordon, you probably do have a little bit more of a dating relationship between them, but that never really lasts. But we really see Sofia pulling a lot of strings amongst the underworld in Gotham, and on top of this, she even escalates things and picks a lot of fights and often betrays people in the end. So I would say we have a much more evil and ill-intended version of her character here. I wouldn't say she's necessarily good by any means in the Long Halloween or Dark Victory comics, but here in terms of being much more social or emotionally manipulative, I'd say that's where her character really pivots. And we do have somewhat of the wheelchair plot point being brought back up in the show, but that really isn't developed too much, and that's really just more of a temporary thing that she fakes there, and we don't have anything like the Hangman killings or the Hangman plot in this show here. And in terms of her overall character reception, I'd say she's much more unlikable in the Gotham show, and I would say in terms of someone that was really developed well all throughout the show, like the Penguin, Sofia really takes a back seat here. But in terms of her overall unlikability, I would say this was more of an intentional thing for the character from a writing perspective and not really anything to do with the acting. So I would say if we're looking at her character as being intentionally unlikable in terms of her behavior, I'd say she is pretty well acted and pretty well written. And I would say something that's also pretty crucial to the Gotham show is that we also see some of the first interactions and some of the building of the rivalry between her and the Penguin. That's definitely something that's new and wasn't done in either of her comic portrayals before. And I think what's really special about that is that's something that was definitely taken a step further now in 2024 with the Penguin. And in terms of her appearance in this, I would say her look is a lot more similar to the Penguin than it is in the Long Halloween, but now following the chronicle evolution of her character, now pivoting to the Long Halloween animated movie, which came out in 2021. She really doesn't appear until the second part of this adaptation here, and I would say that the animated movie is pretty much a direct adaptation. And you have Sofia here being voiced by Layla Berzins. And we also follow the same plot point of her being released from jail at the start of the second part of this animated movie. And I would say here you definitely have a focus on her large physical presence, and she would also serve as a bodyguard-like figure and advisor. But of course, following the same storyline, we do have her witnessing Carmine's death at the end. And we also have the same fall between her and Catwoman. And I would say in terms of her character's usage here, you do have somewhat of a more diminished role again, since she would just be kind of more of a secondary character. But I think what's really interesting is seeing how the character has unraveled in the Penguin series now in 2024. And I would say Sofia serving as the co-lead is really well acted by Kristen Milioti. And I would say her character along with the whole show is just extremely well done. You do have her being pretty rough in the comics, but here I would say you have a pretty heavy emphasis on her extremely traumatic life, even though she has had a pretty fortunate upbringing wealth-wise. So we really see her being forced into a dark life, and her character really shows true strength and overall adaptability to survive. And I would say in terms of Sofia's character, this is definitely looking to be the most attention and time that the character has gotten, of course, overall. And I think it is really great that they are bringing Sofia's character to the spotlight, whereas she originally started as more of a Sonny Corleone in terms of her character's behavior and personality in the comics. I would say in the Penguin, she has much more of a similar demeanor and role to Michael Corleone in terms of his evolution in The Godfather. And really on top of that, I think her role in the Penguin is really great to see, since we haven't seen too much of a female lead, especially in more mob style stories. And in terms of the future of the character, I think this is definitely going to be a major catalyst for Sofia to come. I think immediately in terms of what could happen in the Reeves universe, the relationship between her and Catwoman I think would be something interesting to explore, since they are half sisters. And I think the Penguin show so far is just really well received, that it's definitely possible they could figure out a second season after the Batman Part 2. And again, this could possibly be another stepping stone that could lead into a third movie after that. But I'm really looking forward to watching Milioti's version continue to unravel. So that would be my thoughts on the evolution of Sofia's character. Feel free to let me know any thoughts you have on this, and I'll see you later.